The Kansas basketball season ends in disappointment with a blowout of a loss in March Madness. Let's talk about it and talk about what's coming up in the offseason ahead.
Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your boy JD6 here with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man.
And welcome into another episode of the KC Sports Authority podcast. Keegan, JB, and Spencer here with you. And of course, we want to talk about the disappointing season and into the season it was for Kansas Jayhawks. But first, of course, want to shout out our sponsor, Churchill's. If you guys have been paying attention the last few weeks, we're very excited to be working with them. Churchill's the best cigar lounge in the area. You can find them over in Topeka, Kansas. So shout out Churchill's. Appreciate what they are doing with us. They have an upcoming event. Churchill's is celebrating 3 years of their new location in Topeka, Kansas with their first ever multi-vendor event. It's their Spring Smoker 2024 event featuring some of the top brands they carry with cigar reps in the industry from these brands. Drew Estates, Rocky Patel, La Aurora, Ashton, Espinosa, Christoph, and Altadis Cigars. Join them for big deals on cigars, great food from local food trucks featuring City's Edge Competition Barbecue, among some others. Local brews from Blind Tiger and live music as well. They will have big deals from cigars at each company throughout the day, grand prizes, all that throughout the day. What to do, how to get tickets for this. This is $100 at the door for a ticket. You can buy tickets ahead of time on site at Churchill's. You can also give them a call at the phone number there below, 785-273-0102. Just make sure you mention the podcast when you go over to see them. But that $100 ticket gets you 10 cigars for the day, a meal ticket to a food truck of your choice, 2 free drink tickets to the drink vendors, as well as access to all the events that go on that day. So make sure you guys go check them out. And again, when you go buy tickets, whether it's on site or on the phone, please mention the podcast. All right, fellas. So season ends how a lot of March Madness has the last couple of years for us outside of the national championship year, but a 89-68 loss against Gonzaga. This was another blowout loss going away at the end of the year. Don't want to spend a lot of time recapping this game because if anybody watched it, there was just not much to take away other than first half, you had hope. Second half, you're like, we don't even belong in the same gym as this team. What the heck happened?
Dude, I was watching that game, and I think – so in my official bracket, I gave us a game. I let us get to that game against Gonzaga in my bracket. And I had Gonzaga beating us in our bracket, in my bracket, just because I figured it would – I figured it would be close. I figured we just didn't have enough. Based off of how the season went, but I certainly did not see all of the just dumpster fire that the second half was. I mean, my gosh, after the first half, I was like, wow, it's a 1-point game or something. Like we can win this, and my bracket might be busted, but it's already busted, and I don't really care as long as Kansas is winning. And then certainly, the second half was a totally different story. This Gonzaga team just kind of turned into UConn.
They look way better than the 5 seed they were given, according to that game.
Yeah. I don't know how they lost so many games this year to earn a 5 seed. I mean, that Gonzaga team looked just like traditional Gonzaga that dominates every single year.
Spencer, you sent us a little video the other day, which of course we're not going to play here, but maybe we'll have to reshare that elsewhere. Because if you haven't seen this as a KU fan, I warn you before you watch it, it's going to be very depressing and disturbing. But Spencer, tell us a little bit about what you came across and how that kind of summed up this entire game and honestly a lot of the season.
Well, we can't play it during the episode because it's 10 minutes long, and it's 10 minutes long of failed assignments on defense, not being able to guard the 3, not being able to guard the pick and roll, not being able to just guard screens in general. Doesn't matter if the guy rolls or not. And it was very long. I'll have to look up the guy's username. He's got videos on Coach Cal.
I think he's called bad coaching something.
Yeah, something like that. So props to this guy. He watched a lot of film, but it does a good job illustrating really what the problem was. In the first half, shots were falling, so we were getting away with defensive lapses and blown coverages and everything. So we were getting away with that because we were hitting shots. And then the second half, like the rest of the year, the shops just stopped falling because we don't have that kind of caliber of shooting on our team. The first half definitely was hopeful, and I think it was kind of showed the duality of this season of how we can hang with anybody when we're on, but we're usually off, and that means we can't hang with anybody. So, it was an unfortunate way to end the season. I especially feel bad for, guys. I mean, I didn't think it was a lack of effort by any means, but man, I would have liked to see some adjustments in the second half. I really would have. And, I don't know what Bill was doing on the bench. I don't buy that he was 100% checked out. I think the quote that I'm sure we'll talk about is taken a little bit out of context, but it doesn't seem like he was coaching the game of his life, especially in the second half. But
yeah, that was bad. That video that Spencer's referencing, it looked. I texted this back to him after he sent it. After I watched it, it looked like 5 guys playing on the court individually of each other. 5 guys playing defense without considering what's going on around them. The rotations, the miscues. I don't know who do you blame more, the players or the coach in that circumstance. I don't even understand how a Bill Self team comes out that poorly defensively. I get without Kevin McCullough, we look completely different, and there's not a lot of time in between your first round and your second round to really adjust. But man, nobody could play defense. DeJuan was the only one playing defense, and honestly, I thought he looked pretty good. He held Nembhard in check offensively. Nembhard went 1 of 6, and he's been averaging double digits for the past couple of games. He did get 12 assists, but DeJuan really held him in check. But the rest of that lineup, they went off. I think Gonzaga finished the game shooting 60% from the floor. They shot 53% from 3, which of course is unlike them, another team that goes off against us, which again, we gave them a lot of open shots. KU, like you said, Spencer, they were decent in the first half offensively, enough that it made up for those defensive mishaps. I think KU went 7 for 11 from 3 in the first half, also shooting close to 55%, somewhere in there. Halftime comes around, second half comes out, and it just looked like a team that was tired and checked out. Again, I've said this all season, KJ's the only one that plays with any energy or passion or excitement, and then a little bit from Jamari when he's in there. But that second half, it was just, all right, line up. Let's do a ball screen at the top, get Hunter in movement, and Hunter was moving like a slow giant in slow-mo as well, getting burned every single time. I think I texted this to you guys too. I do not understand. This has been a Bill Self thing for years, and I'm not questioning him. I'm not doubting him. But we cannot defend the pick and roll well without it being a super athletic big, because the way Bill Self teaches it is the hard hedge, and you cannot do that with a 7'2" guy that's got the speed of a snail. Hunter's never been a defensive juggernaut ever. Even at his size, he's not been a shot blocker, nothing. And it was just getting burned left and right. And as soon as he did, the guy that should have been rotating in was not rotating in, and there was just space everywhere. So it was bad. I don't want to dwell on it much longer. Everything that we struggled with all year kind of showed up its ugly version in the second half. Gonzaga looked really, really good. We knew Anton Watson was going to be a tough matchup without Kevin McCullough, and definitely he looked really good. Graham Ike looked really, really good, a guy that KU went for in the offseason as well before Hunter signed with us. But yeah, if you're looking at that game, you kind of wish that the two were flipped and you had a guy like Graham Ike, because he just looked physical. He looked strong. He was doing the pick and roll great. I don't know. I think this team also looked really tired. I think they too were kind of checked out. I know, Spencer, you said the effort isn't really something you want to touch on. I don't think they played with a lot of effort the second half like they did the first half. Some of that could be tired. Some of that is once you start getting defeated, it's just easy to fold over instead of fight back. But yeah, that to me, that summed up this entire year. This team did not show any fight. The only time this team had fight was when they played at home or KJ. Outside of that, this team never looked like they were interested in going toe-to-toe. They didn't look like they were interested in getting in the ring and lacing them up, putting the gloves on. It just was bad. This team had no fight, no physicality all year. The bench production was terrible. The shots didn't fall when we needed them to. Ugly, ugly season. A season Bill Self will soon want to forget, especially coming in with high hopes as the preseason number 1. Spencer, you started to reference one of the quotes, and if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's, the reporter asked Bill Self, "Hey, have you thought about next season at all?" And he goes, "Oh, I've been thinking about next season for a while now." Now, again, that might have been taken out of context in the sense of, hey, Bill Self's been checked out on this team for weeks. I don't think it was that. I think it was more of, hey, the ceiling with this team, with the way things have gone this year, I don't have high hopes. So I'm already thinking, how do we need to correct the failures of this year going into next season? At least that's how I took it. I did not take it as a, hey, I've given up on this team and I'm done. Let's look forward. So that being said, it is now off-season talk. The portal window is open and names are dropping in left and right. Nothing has happened. We'll get into that. Nothing has happened on the Kansas side as of now. But what are your guys' initial thoughts entering in the offseason on what needs to happen, what you want to see, players to look out for, decisions Bill Self needs to make, coaching changes, anything like that? We're going to touch on some of these, and then we'll dive into some more stuff over the next week or so. But the floor is yours.
Here's the deal. What did we talk about at the beginning of the season of like, what are we missing? It's shooting. We talked about it at the beginning of the season. We've talked about it throughout the season that we don't have any shooting on this team. I mean, I can't say any shooting. I mean, yes, we have some shooting. There is some shooting. Okay, Johnny Furphy, he's been streaky, but when he's hot, he's hot. And Dewan has a great percentage, but he doesn't shoot enough. And we have our avenues to find some shooting, but this team in particular displayed what happens when you have a team that can't shoot. I mean, there's no way that you can win the tournament without elite guard play and elite shooting. I mean, we are the team under Bill Self that has by far taken the least amount of threes and has by far been the worst at defending the three. I'm shocked that we even got a 4 seed. I mean, I'm shocked that we've won some of the big games we've won. Just looking back at how badly we performed in the tournament, how badly we performed down the stretch of the season, it's like, wow, we need to correct the shooting issue ASAP. And Zeke Mayo, could he come home to Lawrence? We might just have him and some other guys coming in to fill that role because, yeah, I mean, there's going to be people that are leaving. Kevin, he's out of eligibility. He's gone. Nick Timberlake is gone. There's guys that are graduating and leaving this program, and it's opening up doors for some shooters, some elite shooters to come through and save our program, if you will.
Yeah, and JB, you said something there that got me kind of fired up inside. Watching basketball this last weekend, one was a ton of fun. There were a lot of great games.
Oh, yeah.
March Madness. Every game is so fun to watch. But the thing I kept coming back to, and I was talking about this with a couple other friends, we didn't look like any of the teams that were out there having fun. Like, you look at that Oakland win over Kentucky. Jack Golke gets like 14 three-pointers up, makes 10 of them. How on earth does a guy shoot 14 threes to begin with? I could never imagine that. But makes 10 of them. All these games, I kept watching game after game after game where, like you said, elite guard play and elite shooting was on display. You had guys hitting 5 to 8 plus threes on any given moment across multiple games, and then you turn to the Kansas team, you're going, man, we're lucky to get 5 threes up in a game. Now, I know we got more than that in this game specifically, but as I looked around the rest of the college basketball, I did not see a blueprint that this Kansas team had that was going to beat other teams out there with that guard play. Dewan's a fantastic guard, but he's not the type of guard you win with in March from an offensive standpoint. You need your RJ Davis type. You need your Caleb Love type who can go get a bucket. I know Caleb Love's not the most efficient scorer because it does on high volume, but that was just something I picked up on this weekend watching other teams play is the teams that had a fighting chance were the guys that could create their own shot at any given moment and a team that could get up 33s. And the teams that were winning or at least fighting to the very end were those teams. Heck, even Houston with Jamal Shed, the way he was playing, turned into an offensive juggernaut this last weekend in a game that they definitely needed him because they almost blew that game away. But that's what I noticed this weekend. I think that's my biggest question going into the offseason is how do we retool or reshape the backcourt to replicate what other teams do in March successfully. But that was one nugget there. But yeah, Spencer, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say piggyback because, we do need shooting. So I don't want to say the exact same thing.
You can say shooting.
Well, I think I'll get a little bit more specific. I think we need shot creation, and Keegan, you kind of touched on this a little bit. I mean, we need people that, if the shot clock's running down, we've tried our normal sets and we still don't have a shot. We need a guy that can go and just get a bucket, whether it's, the ability to hit a tough contested 14-footer fading away, or a guy that can get to the bucket and take it to the rim. And the thing with DeJuan especially, I'm a big DeJuan defender because I love the way he plays. I really do. I understand he should be more aggressive on offense, looking for his own shot. But, I mean, you saw it against Stanford. This guy completely broke that press essentially by himself. I mean, other guys did. I mean, we saw KJ try to beat it once and then had a 10-second violation. So you saw what happens when it wasn't DeJuan. So I'm a big DeJuan guy, and I would like to point out we did win a title with him as our starting point guard. So we definitely can. And we didn't win a title with Frank Mason as a point guard or Devontae Graham as a point guard. So
I miss those guys.
I miss him too, but I just want to show where the results came from. And obviously you had Remy Martin coming off the bench, who definitely was.
Yeah, that's the kicker there. You had a bench scoring threat that could get that shot.
Right. But so my point is, DeJuan I don't think is a problem, but he does need to be surrounded by shot creators, and that is totally fine. So that to me, who we look for in the portal, it's really going to depend on who comes back. I mean, this roster is very unique in the way it's set up. I mean, I think we have really talented individual players. I think KJ is an incredible player. I think Hunter's an incredible player. But one of the reasons why I think Bill was like, I've been thinking about this next season for a month now, is because I think he had to. I think it was very glaringly obvious that we had a really bad roster issue. And it wasn't that, everyone on the team sucks. It's just the makeup of the team does not mesh well. And so I think that's why he's been thinking of it for a while, because he's like, I cannot let this happen next year. So he's probably had conversations with guys. What are you going to do? Do you want to come back? If you are going to come back, are you cool coming off the bench? And stuff like that. So I would say all we need is, we need at least two guys in the starting lineup that can get their own shot. That's really what it comes down to.
Spencer, you said you're a DeJuan supporter.
I am.
Are you a KJ supporter? Because there's a sector of KU Twitter that says KJ needs to come off the bench. And there's a really good argument for it. And I'm kind of 50-50. I don't know where to go. I can't see him coming off the bench if he comes back for a senior year. I mean, he's elevated his game every year.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like he's peaked, though. I could be wrong. I mean, maybe I thought Kevin McCullough peaked, and then he took a big leap in his final year.
Yeah.
If you were Bill Self, is KJ coming off the bench next year?
I think there's a great argument for him to come off the bench, but I will tell you all right now, I'll put my year's salary that he's not coming off the bench. Bill Self is not benching a 4-year player. He's not.
I don't think it's ever happened ever.
He's
I can't
not
think of
going
a single player he's done that with.
Never say never.
I don't think he will. I'd like to see some development from KJ. All he needs, KJ just needs a 14-foot shot. That's all he needs. He doesn't need to be a stretch four. We've had plenty of.
He has mid-range game.
He's got the mid-range push shot.
He's got a little push floater.
He needs a jumper.
He needs a jumper. I need a secure jumper, because I'll tell you what, we're not going to win.
Shot.
We're not winning in March if KJ's hitting push shots from 17 feet. That just cannot be the go-to.
He was hitting threes to begin the year, and then he stopped. He literally stopped shooting them. But Bill was probably like, "All right, don't do it anymore."
Whoever put the leash on KJ needs to apologize, because that
I think I remember talking about that, to go all the way back to the beginning of the season. We said something about that, and then the first game of the year, KJ takes a 3 and makes it.
I think it was like by Big 12 play. I think he totally never shot a 3.
He probably took less than 3 all year. It's probably 1 sporadically, but You give KJ a jumper, you feel a lot better with his space. I think really it depends on, is Hunter back? And that's a whole nother conversation. Like I said, we're going to try and do a couple episodes over the next few days that are real short about each individual guy coming back versus going. But if Hunter's back, I don't think Bill Self can go through a whole nother season where the spacing just did not work. Kevin kind of helped with that. But KJ, for him to be active, he needs to be in the middle, and Hunter needs to be down on the block. And once you start running the pick and roll there, the whole defense can merge in. So I think it really depends on Hunter. But you'd be shocked unless Bill Self is just like complete mindset shift this offseason where it's, hey, I'm not doing anything I've done before. I'm turning a new leaf, and I'm diving into what this NCAA model needs to win. I don't see how KJ comes off the bench. I could see him maybe Bill Self talks himself into, okay, instead of 35 minutes a night, KJ's going down to 30, 28, 27.
I could see that.
And maybe if Hunter's back, they start out together. but then the first guy off the bench is a guard, and then KJ slides down to the 5, or KJ comes out and then gives Hunter a breather. It's just you can't go a full season again of those two guys playing together unless KJ gets a jumper.
KJ could be
It's just
benched.
proven it wasn't successful enough against the teams that we play against.
I will say this. I could see self-benching him midseason. I could see that. I don't think he starts the game, but if we're struggling and he's seeing the same issues, then I could see him saying, KJ, something needs to change. So I will tweak my answer just a little bit.
It's so hard to say that because KJ is the epitome of a Bill Self player. He is the perfect example of a
KJ,
work hard, put your body on the line,
Yeah.
play with aggression, physicality, and energy. But at the same time, it's very obvious that it does not work with the group we had this year. Now, we saw it somewhat work last year. KJ, I thought, did just fine as a 5-man last year, undersized. But with that group, it worked because you had multiple guys that could create a shot. Grady Dick was a spot-up shooter, but he could create a little bit of a jumper. Jalen Wilson could be your point forward. It can go get a bucket late at the end of the shot clock. Kevin didn't quite have the jumper he had this year, but he was capable of doing some of that. And then DeJuan was the facilitator. So it worked a little bit better last year's version of KJ at the 5 than KJ at the 4 alongside a true 5-man this year. But yeah, that's definitely got to change going into next year. I'm all for KJ being back. I would sit here and just come up with every reason why KJ should be back. If Hunter's back, gosh, that's such a tough argument because you're talking about, do you say no to a guy that's a 20 and 10 a night guy? I mean, we saw Hunter this year. Even on the nights that he's had 20 and 10, we still
gave
lost,
up 20 and 10. Yeah.
But I mean, Hunter's deficiencies defensively, you just can't have that. And Bill Self's not going to go to zone. He's never been a zone guy. And that's really the only way, in my opinion, you can get Hunter working well against the other athletic bigs. If we're going up against a team that's got a more traditional big man that doesn't run the pick and roll, that's below the baseline kind of guy, sure, it's going to look a little different. But in this day and age of college basketball being the stretch out, you got to either have that stretch 4 or that big oversized guard that is physical enough to box out and play down low. Because if Hunter's getting out in space defensively, I mean, we got burned so many times. I think how many points in the paint do you think Gonzaga scored just because they got Hunter away from the basket? And again, even that being said, when Hunter was near the basket, he still wasn't like a big defensive threat. But it's so much easier to score when you get your 7'2" guy out of the way. I mean, look what teams try to do with Zach Edey. They try to put a stretch 5 on him to pull him away from the basket. Now Zach Edey's a little bit better athlete, and we're not going to get into that. But yeah, it just the matchup this year with those two, it was tough. And again, we'll get into a lot more of this over the next week or so. But as of now, here's what we do know. We know DeJuan's back for sure. Despite whatever ridiculous stuff was said after the game, they just got blown out. They're not happy. They're not going to commit to anything right there. So even KJ saying, "Oh, I don't know what's going to happen next." Hunter, I don't know what's next. They're all going to say that. But we know DeJuan is back as of now. We've heard El Marco say he wants to be back. Same with Jamari. Bill Self said Jamari's a multi-year kind of guy. So unless Jamari wants to go play elsewhere, he's probably here. El Marco, unless Bill Self says goodbye, which we can have a whole other conversation on El Marco's play. Probably the most overrated freshman Bill Self player, potentially, just based on what was expected of him and what he delivered. Again, we'll have a whole nother episode on that.
Check Diallo.
Yeah, that's, again, another discussion there. I think Check Diallo was more situational.
Cliff Alexander,
again, situational things that came up that impacted. I think their physical play on the floor was not bad. It was the off the court stuff. But yeah, El Marco, unless he's shown the door by Bill Self, I don't see him going anywhere because I think he knows he had a terrible, terrible season. Johnny Furphy's the big question mark. And does he go pro in a draft that is weaker at his position? But honestly, the last few weeks, Furphy looked rough. If he wasn't hitting his shot, he was not creating his own shot. So he clearly needs to develop there. He got better defensively. So we're still up in the air with that. And then Hunter, there's been nothing as of right now on Hunter so far of, does he want to come back? He's not getting drafted. He's too bad defensively, so he's not getting drafted. Does he go play overseas? Does he want the NIL money again? Does he say, hey, you know what? This 1 year it was great. Does Bill Self say, hey, I can't do this again. Why don't you go to another team? I don't know. So with what we do know, that with Flory Badunga coming in, unless he reopens his intent letter, which I don't think he's going to do as of now. LeBaron Philon, the kind of combo scoring guard we are talking about needing in the portal, but he'll be a freshman. And again, we've never really seen a freshman guard do exactly what we're talking about. And then a wing in Raquise Passmore, super athletic guy that can shoot pretty well. Again, a freshman, so you don't have high hopes. What do we do in the offseason? Is it hope that Furphy's back and then you find the right 3-man that is or Furphy slides to the 3 and you go find the 2 guy like a Zeke Mayo who can score and get his own shot? What do you guys think the best case scenario is this offseason as far as roster construction goes?
I'll let Spencer take it.
Yeah, I mean, I would be a proponent of having Furphy back because, I think his ceiling for improvement, even within 1 year, I think is pretty crazy. I mean, obviously, like you said, it's a separate discussion of whether or not he should go pro versus not. But I personally would like to have him back. I saw really good flashes defensively. He's pretty dangerous in transition. I understand he's a streaky shooter, but if you look at the structure of his shot, the form and everything, I mean, he's a good shooter. The shot's going to fall. It's not there's nothing mechanically wrong with his shot. So I like to see him slide over to the 3. And like you said, let's try to get a combo guard that is a shot creator at the 2. Would love to obviously have Zeke Mayo as a Lawrence native, all that good stuff. But I know he declared for the draft while maintaining his eligibility, whatever all that stuff means. So he can essentially do whatever he wants. I think getting a player of his caliber, I do not like relying on freshmen to fulfill needs. I really don't. I think freshmen, even talented freshmen, even McDonald's All-American freshmen need to be looked at as development players their first year. They could go pro after 1 year and be a lottery pick while still not playing well.
Or that they have to be the surefire, like Duke had with Trey Jones – and Zion and RJ Barrett and Cam Reddish. It's got to be the surefire guy that is just elite at something specific.
Right, yeah, and Grady Dick. We saw Grady Dick. He came in and made an immediate impact. He was a lethal shooter and could create his own shot. So, I don't like to rely on freshmen to fulfill actual needs, especially now that the transfer portal is so prevalent. So, but me personally, I would not like to lose Furphy. I'd like to keep him. I think he fulfills a need of a stretch 3-and-D guy that can help spacing, but also help us defensively. And he's not going to be a freshman anymore next year. He's going to have an entire year under his belt. He's going to go through the
full offseason too.
Full offseason. He's going to come back. He's probably going to put on weight, probably going to put on muscle, probably be able to drive and not be knocked off balance as easy. So I think that to me is the best case scenario and where we should look.
Yeah, because if he comes back and develops like we're talking about, there's so many guys out there that think he could be an All-American in year 2.
Yeah.
I can see why the NBA guys are going to be all over wanting him. Mm-hmm. But I think in Furphy's case, you go, hey, do you want to be a 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th man on an NBA team that you'll mostly be in the G League and not really see time? Or do you want to put your talents to the test on national television every single game and showcase your skill set with actual playing time? Or do you go back overseas? We'll save that again for another conversation. Outside of that, I think I'm right there with you. If Furphy's back at the 3, even if KJ's at the 4 starting and Hunter's at the 5, I think a lot of what we're talking about can get cleared up if we get that dynamic electric 2 guard that does what El Marco was hoping to do, or what we figured we would get with Arterio Morris this year, which of course that never happened. That elite level scorer that can be your secondary ball handler, can go create a shot at the end of the shot clock when needed. Athletic, solid defensively. I think that's the other part, is we just need a team that can play defense together. I think this year DeJuan was a worse defender than he was last year, and I don't think that's because he played poorly. I think there was more pressure on him on the other side of the ball that it took some attention away. DeJuan was successful in that national championship run because he had a guy like Remy who could come in and take the scoring threat away and be the scoring threat, and DeJuan could focus defensively. We don't win that national championship without DeJuan being a lockdown defender the first 8 minutes of the second half on RJ Davis and Caleb Love. But he was able to do that because he had a guard next to him, and he had a guy like Ochai and Christian Brown next to him that could go get a bucket, and a guy like Jalen. This team just flat out didn't have it. So if we can get a guy like that at the 2, I think it is okay running it back with the other 4. If you can't get that, or you lose a guy like Furphy, I think it does open us up to some other options. I'd even be interested in the conversation of what would it look like if Hunter's out and it's a different type of guy at the 5. That being said, though, I still would like to take Hunter back because it's 20-10, All-American level caliber. Just got to figure out how to play defense around him. But a lot of questions left. Anything you guys want to touch on before we get out of here?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, let's wrap up there. Again, very disappointing into the season. I think it's one we all saw coming, despite Timberlake's epic performance earlier, giving us a little bit of hope for the tournament. Another March Madness down the drain of what if questions. I think we'll still be talking about what if Kevin McCullough played, how would things be differently, just like all the other years. I think, again, I said it on one of those episodes, basically like 12 of the last 14 seasons, KU's had a what if question mark going into the tournament. So that's kind of frustrating that it ends on a sour note there. Still feel for Kevin as a player. Again, we already had that conversation on injury. Hope he gets better so he can pursue his dreams in the NBA. But really, we hope that Bill Self's locked in this offseason. There's been questions of should he look at his coaching staff? Should there be any changes there? Should a guy like Curtis Townsend maybe be shown the door because of recruiting issues, and maybe we get someone back that's a developer? Danny Manning, bring him back. There's been talk about Jock Vaughn. There's been talk about Aaron Miles. All sorts of Frank Mason's out here tweeting about wanting to be a coach. Anyway, so there's a lot of things that could happen. We're going to try and cover as much of it we can the next few weeks. The crazy part is the transfer portal is live and wild every second, so we might not cover all of it, and by the time we get to something, it might be too late. So, but we are going to try to do a couple of player profile episodes the next couple of days, just kind of give the argument for or against certain guys coming back, and how that would shake things up. And talk about Johnny Furphy, El Marco, Kevin, KJ and Hunter and all that. So plenty of that still to come. But yeah, that'll wrap it up for this one. Thank you guys again. Go check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at KCSA Pod. Don't forget to subscribe over here on YouTube. We're about 50 subscribers away from 500. Would love to see that happen over the next few weeks, and appreciate all of you that have helped us out so far. So until next time, guys, as always, rock chalk.
Rock chalk.
Rock chalk.